after doing the anterior compartment, now we start with the lateral compartment of the leg. Like the anterior compartment, lateral compartment is also having the muscles, a artery and a nerve. The artery is the peroneal artery and the nerve is the superficial peroneal nerve. Superficial peroneal nerve. Like the dorsal section of the leg, the skin, below the skin like the superficial, there is the yellow color fat, and below the yellow color fat there is a deep fascia, there is the fascia cruris is the name given, and there is a cut section of the fibula bone laterally, and the tibia bone with the posterior surface, lateral border, lateral surface, anterior border, medial surface, the lateral border. So this is the section of the tibia, and this is the interosseous membrane, and this is the lateral anterior intermuscular septum. This is the posterior lateral intermuscular septum. So as we have done, this is the anterior compartment, this was lateral compartment, this was posterior compartment. So lateral compartment has got the muscles, there are two. One is called the peroneus longus and second is the peroneus brevis. So two muscles are there, peroneus longus and peroneus brevis. So it is a very small compartment as compared to the anterior and the posterior. And it has got a artery, that is the peroneal artery, branch of the posterior tibial artery, and a nerve, that is the superficial peroneal nerve, which is the branch of the common peroneal nerve. So this is the lateral small compartment. So laterally, so bones in the region that we have to do first of all in the lateral part. So as the fibula bone is the lateral bone of the leg. So the upper end of the fibula is expanded, that is called the head of the fibula, and the top point of the head is called the styloid process or the apex of the head. Then head suddenly narrows down to form the neck of the fibula. Then the irregular shaft with three borders, three surfaces of the fibula bone, and the lower part is again extended to form the lateral malleolus. And this lateral malleolus, it articulates with the lateral surface of the talus bone, which is resting on the calcaneum, that is the bone of the heel. With the calcaneum bone, the bone of the heel, and anteriorly this calcaneum bone articulates with the tarsal bone, that is called the cuboid. And cuboid on its plantar surface has a oblique groove. And this cuboid bone, it articulates with the two metatarsals, the fourth and the fifth metatarsal, for the third and the fourth finger. So this is how we articulate the calcaneum, the talus and the lateral bone. So medial bone we can show here the tibia. So this is the lateral view of the leg showing the fibula bone. Now the muscle they are peroneus longus and the brevis. So peroneus longus muscle, it takes origin from number 1 from the anterior surface of the lateral condyle of the tibia. Number 2 from the head of the fibula, but not from the neck of the fibula. Then this muscle takes origin from the lateral 2/3 of the shaft of the fibula. Lateral upper 2/3 of the lateral surface of the shaft of the fibula is the origin of the peroneus longus muscle. So 3-point origin of the peroneus longus. After this, the peroneus longus muscle from its origin in the lateral compartment, it runs downward and its tendon passes behind the groove in the lateral malleolus, and now it comes on the lateral surface of the calcaneum. And on the lateral surface of the calcaneum there is a small bony tubercle is there, which is called the trochlea. It's called the trochlea. So this peroneus longus tendon passes below the trochlea and a fibrous tissue thickening of the deep fascia covers the trochlea and the peroneus longus tendon and the calcaneum bone. So this is called the peroneal retinaculum. Peroneal retinaculum, below which the peroneus longus tendon passes. So a tunnel is formed by the peroneal retinaculum. Then this tendon of the peroneus longus runs on the lateral surface of the calcaneum and it reaches on the plantar surface of the cuboid bone. And on the plantar surface of the cuboid bone, a oblique groove is already waiting. So this tendon of the peroneus longus runs in the groove of the cuboid bone, and this groove is, as already said, that it is obliquely placed. So it changes the direction of the peroneus longus tendon from the lateral to the anterior and medial side. Anterior and medial side, and because of this groove, because of this oblique groove, the tendon of the peroneus longus, it passes below the bases of 4th, 3rd and 2nd metatarsal bones, and then it gets inserted on the base, on the lateral surface of the base of the 1st metatarsal, plus a little slip also goes to the medial cuneiform bone. Medial cuneiform bone also. So it passes like this. So it is inserted and going from lateral to medial side and inserted on the base of the first metatarsal. Which surface? Plantar surface. Which part? Lateral part. Because of its action. Because the action of this muscle is the eversion. It causes the eversion movement. That's why it has gone below the arm. Then second muscle is the peroneus brevis. So peroneus brevis muscle takes origin from the lateral surface of the shaft of the fibula, but from the lower 2/3. From the lower 2/3 of the shaft of the fibula. And the tendon of this peroneus brevis also passes deep to the peroneus longus tendon behind the lateral malleolus. And then the peroneus brevis tendon also passes on the lateral surface of the calcaneum, but above the trochlea, in the same, below the same peroneal retinaculum. So there are two tunnels, above the trochlea and below the trochlea. Above the trochlea is for the peroneus brevis and below the trochlea is the peroneus longus. So this peroneal retinaculum, it retains the peroneus longus and brevis tendons while they are acting. That is the action of the function of the retinaculum. They retain the anatomical position of the tendons while they are acting. Plus it also prevents the mutual friction between them. And these tendons here above and below the trochlea, they are covered by the synovial sheath also, which lubricates the tendons and prevent their friction. And it also modifies and also facilitates the smooth eversion movement of the foot. Plus it also maintains the lateral longitudinal arc also. So after passing below the trochlea, above the trochlea, the tendon of the peroneus brevis runs on the lateral surface of the calcaneum, then on the lateral surface of the cuboid bone, then it is inserted on the tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal bone. Tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal bone, and this tuberosity of fifth metatarsal bone is present on the lateral surface of the base of the fifth metatarsal. So tuberosity is out of the. And if we measure the lateral border of the foot, this tuberosity is present in the middle of the lateral border. And it is slightly outward and is also subcutaneous. The tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal is the insertion of the peroneus brevis. So in this way, the two muscles, they are inward. So origin, insertion, now come their nerve supply. As we know, the lateral surface of the neck of the fibula is related to the common peroneal nerve, which is coming from the popliteal fossa, along with the tendon of the hamstring, that is the biceps femoris muscle. This biceps femoris muscle is inserted over the head of the fibula, encircling the fibular collateral ligament, which is attached to the apex or the styloid process of the fibula. So the tendon of the peroneus, this bicep femoris and the common peroneal, they are almost having the same thickness in the popliteal fossa. So this common peroneal nerve is coming here and touching the lateral surface of the neck of the fibula, which is the weakest point of the fibula. And here, the common peroneal nerve bifurcates into a lateral superficial peroneal nerve and a medial deep peroneal nerve. And this deep peroneal nerve, we have seen that it enters into the anterior compartment, while the superficial peroneal nerve it runs on the lateral compartment, on the lateral surface of the fibula. And this is also accompanied by the peroneal artery, which is the branch of posterior tibial supplying the muscles. And this peroneal artery, after supplying the lateral compartment muscle, that is the peroneus longus and brevis, it runs downward and it passes between a small hole is present in the lower part of interosseous membrane. So here the peroneal artery terminates by passing through a hole in the lower part of the interosseous membrane, and it goes into anterior compartment. And this branch is called the perforating branch of the peroneal artery. Perforating branch of the peroneal artery, and this artery anastomoses with the dorsalis pedis artery. This artery anastomoses with the dorsalis pedis artery. Sometimes what happens in the variation, sometimes the anterior tibial artery, it ends into the anterior compartment above the ankle joint. Then this perforating branch of the peroneal artery is continued as the dorsalis pedis artery. You see, the variation is sometimes seen in some individual, that perforating branch of the peroneal artery becomes the dorsalis pedis artery. So that variation has to be kept in mind. So regarding the superficial peroneal nerve, it also runs downwards, supplying the peroneus longus and brevis. After supplying the two muscles, this nerve also enters into the anterior compartment and runs on the dorsal surface of the foot. And in the dorsal surface of the foot, this superficial peroneal nerve supplies most of the skin of the dorsum of the foot. Most of the skin of the dorsum of the foot. So whenever we draw the cutaneous nerve supply of the foot, then we make the sensory or the cutaneous nerve supply of the foot. As we have already done, that the area between the lateral surface of the great toe and the medial surface of the first digit, this area of the skin is supplied by the deep peroneal nerve. The lateral border of the foot, the skin of the lateral border is supplied by the sural nerve, and the medial border of the skin of the foot is supplied by the saphenous nerve. This is the sural nerve, branch of tibial nerve in the popliteal fossa. This is the saphenous nerve, the branch of the femoral nerve, and this is the longest cutaneous nerve of the human body. Branch of femoral nerve in the front of the thigh, and it ends into the foot. So it traverses almost whole of the lower limb. Saphenous nerve. Then this rest of the whole of the skin of the dorsum of the foot is supplied by the superficial peroneal nerve. So a larger area of the skin is supplied by the superficial peroneal nerve. So this is the cutaneous innervation of the skin of the dorsum of the foot. So origin, insertion, arterial supply and nerve supply we have done of the lateral compartment. Now comes last the applied anatomy or the action of the muscles. So as the action of these muscles of the peroneus longus and brevis is the eversion of the foot. Eversion of the foot. So what is the eversion of the foot? So eversion of the foot is the movement of the foot in which, number one, lateral border is raised above the ground. Lateral border is raised above the ground. And number two, so that sole should tilt laterally, or sole faces outward or lateral in position. So two mechanisms are there in the movement of the eversion. Number one is the lateral border of the foot is raised above the ground, and number two, the whole of the tarsal bones, they tilt on the outward or on the lateral surface. So this is how the eversion movement of the foot is there, like this. And both the muscles, peroneus longus and brevis, they bring about the eversion movement. No doubt, we know the medial cuneiform is the bone where the peroneus longus is inserted. This is the same bone that is the medial cuneiform where the tibialis anterior is also inserted. Number three, this is the same bone where the tibialis posterior, which are both are the inverters, they are also inserted on the medial cuneiform and the base of the first metatarsal, whereas the peroneus longus and brevis, only longus is inverting. So three muscles are inserted on the base of the first metatarsal and the medial cuneiform which is adjoining it. So because of this proximity of the insertion of the tibialis anterior, posterior and the peroneus longus, so they act as the tie beams to maintain the lateral and the medial longitudinal arches. So that is the mode of the insertion of these three muscles, you have to remember. Now, how the peroneus longus and brevis are bringing the eversion? As I have told you, that first stage of the eversion movement is the lateral border of the foot is raised. And this lateral border of the foot is raised, this action is done by peroneus brevis. Why? Because we have seen that the peroneus brevis muscle is inserted over the tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal. And if you measure the foot from the tip of the little finger up to the calcaneum, then the tuberosity comes in the middle of it. And so this is in the middle. If you measure the tip of the little finger and the posterior aspect of the calcaneum, if you draw a line, so this tuberosity comes in the middle. So when the peroneus brevis is inserted, so from the lateral part, when the peroneus brevis will be acting, then what will happen? It will raise the tuberosity, means fifth metatarsal. So when fifth metatarsal is raised, the tuberosity, whole of the lateral border of the foot is raised. So that is the peroneus brevis. Observe the first definition of the eversion, that is the lateral border has to be raised above the ground before it is touching the ground. So peroneus brevis will raise the lateral border of the foot above the ground. So this is the reason why this muscle is inserted on the tuberosity, which is at the middle of the lateral border. If this tendon had been inserted somewhere here in the calcaneum, somewhere here, then peroneus brevis, what would have been the action of the peroneus brevis? It will only raise the calcaneum. If this muscle has been inserted, peroneus brevis, on the lateral surface of the mid shaft of the fifth metatarsal, then only the anterior part of the lateral border will be raised. So why the nature has made it the middle? Because whenever we raise something in the middle, whole of the lateral border is raised. So this is the reason why it is inserted on the midpoint of the lateral border, where lies the tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal, so that whole of the lateral border can be easily raised, and the peroneus brevis can subserve the first action of the eversion movement. So this is to be understood. Second part of the definition of the eversion is that this is the movement of the foot in which so that the sole should face outward or laterally. This action will be done by the peroneus longus. How? We have seen that the peroneus longus, after taking origin, is passing below the groove in the cuboid bone and from here this tendon of the peroneus brevis is tilted forward and medially, and it passes below the second, third and fourth metatarsal bases, because it has been given the task of raising the whole of the sole of the foot. So that's why it is passing below the bases of the second, third and fourth metatarsals, and then it gets inserted on the base of the lateral surface of the plantar surface of the first metatarsal, so that whenever this muscle will act, then all the bases of the metatarsals of this second, third and fourth and including fifth will be raised. That's why this tendon has gone through below all the metatarsal and to get inserted on the first, because it has to tilt the sole of the foot in such a way that it should face laterally. So this is how to attempt the what is the eversion movement in two phase, two muscles, two mechanisms. Now the first action of the lateral border is raised. This action is going on the intertarsal joints. Intertarsal joints. While the second action of the longus, that is the whole of the foot is tilted laterally, this movement is acting on the subtalar joint. That you have to remember. Subtalar joint. Subtalar joint is also called the talocalcaneal joint. Talocalcaneal joint, as we know, the talus bone is resting on the calcaneum. So this inversion and eversion movements, they are taking place below the sub means below the talus. So below talus is the calcaneum. So this joint between the talus and the superior surface of the calcaneum is called the subtalar joint. So this eversion and the inversion movements is acting on the not on the ankle joint, but they are acting on the subtalar joint, that is the talocalcaneal joint. So that you have to remember. Now regarding the episiotomy of the lateral compartment, first is the fracture of the tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal. So it is a very common fracture. Whenever the foot is accidentally tilted on some hard object, then this tuberosity of the fifth metatarsal, which is out of the lateral border of the foot, is already extra. So it strikes against the hard object and they got fracture. But it is usually comminuted and it is undisplaced fracture, because of the two muscles are inserted over this. On the lateral surface is the peroneus brevis, and on the medial surface of the base is the peroneus tertius. So these two tendons will keep the fractured piece of the tuberosity in situ or in the position, and usually the union occurs within 3 to 4 weeks without the knowledge of the patient. Another problem of the foot is the forced eversion. Forced eversion of the foot. So this is also accidental injury to the lateral border. So because of the accidentally in the movement, that is the inversion movement is there. And in the inversion movement, what happens? The whole of the foot is tilted accidentally inward. And in this, what happens? Because of the movement, as the tibia bone is resting on the talus bone, and lateral malleolus is also resting on the lateral surface of the talus bone. So because of the forced or accidental inversion of the foot, which is very common while a person is coming down from a height. In the stairs, most common, his or her foot is suddenly fracture of the fibula. So fibula bone is as we know, it is a non-weight transmitting bone. So we have done the knee joint, so it doesn't take part in the knee joint formation. So weight doesn't pass through it. So whenever a person comes with the fracture of the both bones of the leg, that both tibia and fibula, usually fracture occurs at the same level, we always give the attention to the tibia. We reduce the fracture, we can do the close reduction, we can do the open reduction with plating and other maneuvers. We ignore the fibula because it is a non-weight transmitting bone. Fourth applied is the bone grafting. So whenever the bone grafting is required anywhere in the body, in the fracture of any part of the other bones of the body, we can sacrifice the fibula bone. We can take a piece of the fibula bone because it is a non-weight transmitting bone. So absence of this bone doesn't have got any ill effect on the walking stance. So that is how we do. Last applied of the lateral compartment is leprosy. So leprosy is a disease in which the common peroneal nerve, which is touching the lateral surface of the neck of the fibula, is 3-4 times thicker in leprosy patients. So this is also the one of the criteria to diagnose the leprosy, that the common peroneal nerve is thickened. Same in the upper limb we have done in the leprosy, which nerve is thickened? Ulnar nerve. So ulnar nerve is also thickened 3 to 4 times thicker in the leprosy in the upper limb. So whenever a case of the leprosy patient comes, we always palpate the ulnar nerve behind the medial epicondyle and the common peroneal nerve just by touching the lateral surface of the neck of the fibula. So here we can easily feel like the ulnar nerve, common peroneal nerve is also very near to the skin or it is subcutaneous. So this is how we do the applied anatomy of the lateral compartment. Now after doing these compartments, now